Everything that we think exists is actually a mistake. The whole universe is trying to repair that mistake with the evolution of the same mistake.
Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm your host, Espen. Today I'm joined by Matias De Stefano. He is a leader and teacher in the health, awareness, and consciousness space.
The whole universe is trying to condense itself into the right path because everything that we perceive and live in the third dimension actually in the origin was a mistake that should never have happened. But because the universe is infinite, we adapted and created a new option to understand why do we exist in this new universe that wasn't supposed to exist.
Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm your host, Espen. Today I'm joined by a special human, and we're going to have a different conversation today. Today we're going to have a conversation about remembering on not just a physical level, but on a deeper spiritual and potentially multi-dimensional level. Today I'm joined by Matias De Stefano. He is a leader and teacher in the health, awareness, and consciousness space, and has been teaching some profound remembrance for quite some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out his bio that he has sent to me. I'm just going to read it in first person because I think it actually deserves to do exactly that. I'm going to hand over to Matias for the first question and introduction. It goes like this. My name is Matias De Stefano. I am a conscious educator, and many know me as the Rememberer. I was born August 4, 1987, and since then, I've kept my memory of life before birth active. Over the years, my memories have deepened, exploring dimensions beyond the ordinary and providing me with an integral vision of the cosmos beyond my experience. Basically, Matias has remembered many past lives in different star systems, dimensions, and experiences of what we call life. And we're here today to ask a series of questions as to the universe, who we are, and how we can activate this beautiful dormant potential that lies within. Brother, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. How are you today, man?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm fine. I'm, as usual, in between airports.
Traveling around the world, you've been on some big stages now because what you share is so revolutionary. We're in a time where we are indeed beginning to remember. I believe we're in a time where, we don't need to have the conversations, do extraterrestrials exist? Are there multidimensional beings that exist? And so on and so forth. I think we can kind of skip that chapter. Before we get into it, can you just tell me, I recently presented at Gaia. You've been at Gaia many, many times. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself so that we kind of get the, as I call it, the understanding as to who we're speaking with, and then we can go deep into some powerful questions, please.
Yeah, sure. Of course, I was invited by Gaia a few years ago, I think 2018, but I've been doing many things before that, mostly in Spanish, of course, since Gaia started to do it in English, and everything that I have done in my life has been all related to the missions that I remember since I was a child that I have to do around the planet. I have to go certain places, meet certain people, connect certain information. So I've been doing that as my natural state, as my natural thing for myself, because it's my own path. So since I was a kid, I remember, more than remember, I started to feel other dimensions. I started to connect with other consciousness that were around in other levels of myself. And that helped me to understand the universe in a very different way, which helped me help others to understand the universe around them. So, of course, always as a friend, trying to answer some questions according to my memories. And then when I started to do my missions around the world, when I started to remember things that I haven't accomplished before that I am supposed to remember today in order to do them around the planet, new society, healing process of the planet, so many things to do. So I started to do them, and a lot of people started to join everything that I was doing, going around the world and so on. So then a lot of people wanted to travel with me and to live the adventures and so on. So that's what got me into a lot of people.
Absolutely, Matthias. This is amazing. And I have tuned into a lot of your work. And, there are sometimes people that are, pretending to have access to information that are not necessarily as authentic. I, for sure, am convinced that you are the real deal. You speak from the heart. You're really integral within your message. You help a lot of people. And as I mentioned earlier, we have, fellow friends in common that absolutely rave about your work. So I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge it as well, because I, for one, know my patients and students have, I've sent them some of your presentations and some of your channelings, and it has really, really helped them. So it's beautiful, man, that you even take the time to be on this interview while at the airport in transit. So thank you, man. Okay, I want to dive deep. You are known as the Rememberer, well known for your multidimensional memory. And so we talk about these multi-dimensions, how we're potentially, spirits, consciousness having a temporary human experience in this upper third dimension. But you're also known for your galactic teachings and many other things. When we discuss your remembering of lifetimes beyond this earth, what is the most disruptive truth that you've remembered that humanity is or is not potentially ready to hear just yet? What is the most disruptive truth?
Should I say that then?
Yeah. Give us the leg up.
Okay, so basically that everything that we think exists is actually a mistake, and the whole universe is trying to repair that mistake with the evolution of the same mistake. And so the whole universe is trying to condense itself into the right path, because everything that we perceive and live in the third dimension actually in the origin was a mistake that should never have happened. But because the universe is infinite, we adapted and created a new option to understand why do we exist in this new universe that wasn't supposed to exist. So I think that's something that would mean a lot for a lot of people that usually are trying to find a meaning in existence. Like if someone wanted for us to be and to exist, when actually it's not exactly like that.
Okay. So you got to tell us now about this mistake. Are we talking genetic changes here, or are we talking something different? Do tell.
No, it's even before that. Genetics didn't even exist.
What happened?
It was actually something related to the position of photons in the infinite. Today, we perceive everything through the movement. Our mind perceives the movement of photons, of particles. Now, science can understand the tiniest of the particles, let's say, but those tiniest of particles actually shouldn't be perceived. Actually, the universe is just mind. So basically, the mind condenses itself so much until it's just one specific thing that the more we try to understand it, the more we break it. So I like to say to understand that, for example, science means to cut in pieces something. So when you try to understand something from the point of view of science, you don't see holographically, you see just the slices. So then through the slices, you try to understand the whole. So it's basically like having a human body, and science says, hey, let's cut this body in many pieces to understand why this person is alive. But by doing that, you are killing it. So basically, you are killing the body to try to understand why it's alive. So science, not only in this planet, but in other planets, science has been trying to cut the universe in pieces by splitting particles, by breaking time laws, and many things that are breaking the structure of the infinite. And when it's infinite, you cannot speak about origin. Like you cannot say in the past, you are changing the universe. In reality, what you are doing is changing it from its very tapestry, the fabric of it, when you break the smallest aspect of the mind inside particles. So basically what happened is that in that construction of idea of the universe, someone, something, an aspect of the self just tried to break it in half to see what it was inside and how everything began. And by doing that, it created polarity. And by doing that, it broke the system into rhythm, and rhythm creating causes, and those causes created effects. And that took us to positive and negative particles and explosions. And here we are. So basically is the consciousness of the universe that has been split by mistake.
Makes sense. Okay, so we're talking, you mentioned some principles, the universe is mental. You mentioned cause and effect, the law of rhythm. Would this pertain to the 7 Hermetic principles? Are they real? Is this something that we could use in our daily lives?
Of course, the 7 principles are something very useful when you are in this reality.
Yeah.
Because for the origin of the universe, it's just a thought. So the only law applicable there is mind. All the rest are just expressions of when something got broken. So when the mind is broken, immediately the law of correspondence show up. Because it's broken, now it tries to compensate, so it creates polarity. In the waves of compensation and harmony, you create rhythm. So all the laws of the universe are basically appearing to try to compensate the mind that was broken into.
Oh yeah, okay, I get it. This is cool. Okay, so I want to ask you a question now. So let's say that we are a mistake, and or the universe and the existence of the experiment of photons, made us into who we are today, irrelevant to how we want to, reflect upon it. What then is, in your view, the purpose of this human experience? Why we're here, and what's the purpose of it?
Well, there's a lot of layers to that, and I don't have all the answers. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here in the podcast. That's for sure. But what I have been able to remember or grasp in the universe, just because an aspect of myself in another dimension is asking me to help into some of those dots that have been broken. So I only know that part, not the whole picture. But I would say humans, we are in the middle of a huge process of evolution. So humans are not the final product of when we are building what the actual divine is building. We are in the middle of a process. So we are still like kids trying to understand what to do. And even if we seem very clever, there are millions and millions of years away from a final answer of our evolution. So basically, this humanity is literally the neurons of the sympathetic system of the brain of a planet. So the sympathetic, I think in English is sex. So it's basically when you want to move your hand on purpose, you are sending signals to the hand to be moved. So that sympathetic system is basically the wheel of doing stuff. So how a brain can operate the structure through electrical pulses. Every human is kind of like one of those neurons that move the hand of the planet. So we are in a process of evolution that for us is like, oh, we are a clever species living on planet Earth. But from the point of view of the actual divine is, oh, these cells are evolving in a planet that is thinking about itself for the first time. So it's a cognitive process of evolution, and we are in the middle of it.
Beautiful. I channeled some things some years ago. I'd love your hypothesis on it. I had a vision. I was asking, what is God?
Mm-hmm.
What is creator? What is universe? What is infinite? What is the divine? What is source creation? And what are we? And I saw us as fractals of the divine. And what I mean by that was, I saw that source, God, creator, the infinite, had separated itself into so many pieces that it went down dimensions, down layers, down into denser parts. And we went past the veil of forgetfulness. I don't know if this is perhaps in the third dimension or whatever, but going into the third dimension, being in the law of duality, we separated ourselves so much that we forgot that we were God, that we were part of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in the process of remembering. We're in the process of coming home to remember that we are unique fractals of source, here to live our legacy, which is to shine our light in our own unique way. So it was as if the perfectness of divinity separated itself into forgetfulness so that it may bring back its own pieces and remember. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. The idea of, I always explain the divine or God as only one thing that needed to express itself. So That's the best way to understand. I need to express. And express, I always talk about etymology because I love the codes that are behind the meanings of the words. So express means to get out of pressure. So when all the pressure of the universe is condensed in only one particle in the middle of everything, and everything doesn't exist because everything is just that particle. So that is so much pressure that the infinite mind condensed in just one tiny dot need eventually to express. So to express, it means this explosion of separation of the nothingness into the everything. So in that moment, of course, the divine is not something that is here and then its creation is there. It's the same creation everywhere. So it's the same divine everywhere. There's only one particle that is becoming every proton and every electron in the entire universe. So when you reach the truth behind every proton that is shaping everything that we are, you find out that actually they don't exist, that they are just a construction of an idea of only one thing that we perceive as many. So as you said, it's a fractal. So we are fractals of that divine, but because now we are fractals, we have the whole universe within, but we cannot see the entire universe. So the whole pursuit of the entire universe, not just humans, but every creature in the universe, is about how can I remember? And it's not about remember you're divine. It's how can I put the members together? So all the pieces that I am are spread all around the universe, and how can I put those members together? So that would be the process of remembering. That's why we need to connect with people, cultures, stones, plants, and search for the divine everywhere. Because the divine is not in a church, the divine is not in heaven, the divine is in every atom. So until you don't accept all the atoms as part of yourself, as an equal, as you, so you cannot actually remember the divine.
I love that. Brings us back to the one of the 12 universal laws, which is an extrapolation of the 7 Hermetic principles, which is the law of divine unity, how everything is indeed one. Okay, I want to segment quickly. Before we press record, we had to talk about a fellow friend, Aubrey Marcus. I'm off to Texas next week to run breathwork for his mastermind. And I had an experience many years ago where I broke both my legs. I got a really bad infection from the hospital. I fought for my life with this infection for 1 year and 2 months, and the doctor said I was going to die. I was I wouldn't say an atheist at the time, but I was certainly not as connected to spirit as I am. But in that moment, spirit came through. The first time in my life, I was faced with death or the amputation of a leg. And spirit came through me. And for the first time in my whole life, I just felt still and silent and really fearless. I felt connected to something that was really peaceful. And so I went home and breathed, and I breathed extensively for 3 weeks. I fought for my life with the infection for 1 year and 2 months. And through breathwork, I managed to heal myself. I'm teaching this ever since. We see that when we breathe in a certain rhythm, we can activate the pineal pituitary circuit. We can, the brain can secrete DMT. We have, psychedelic type experiences, ayahuasca type experiences in breath work. And we now hypothesize, as I said, that the brain can make DMT. But I want to ask you, from your remembering, from your lifetimes of wisdom that you've collected back to this awareness, the point of awareness, what is really breath? And what role does breath or breath work play in our remembering?
It's funny that the word spiritual or spirit, it's the Latin word for breath, breathing. So spirare, spirit, means to take a deep breath. So spirituality is the ability to breathe properly. That's the actual meaning of spirituality. Of course, we misunderstood the concept of spirituality as praying to a god or believing in something that you cannot see. But actually, from the very original concepts of the ancient traditions, they said spirit is something that you breathe. So you need to know how to breathe so the spirit can live in you, within you. And in the ancient traditions, they said that the spirit was that because you live because of something that you cannot see. the air, the wind is something untouchable that is giving you the life. So in the concept of the ancient, oxygen was God, basically. So of course that for other living beings, oxygen is not God. Oxygen, like for plants, oxygen is the shit. So I don't need this waste product. Yeah. It's the waste product of it.
It's
So
shit. I mean, in a way, I get it.
yeah. So for us, oxygen is that. But one of the reasons why is because of water, hydrogen and oxygen. When hydrogen mixes with oxygen, it creates the Holy Trinity, of particles that ignites the suns, ignites the stars. Hydrogen, it's the power itself. And when the power itself is balanced by oxygen, it creates an infinite amount of power that is basically the three eyes of God. So hydrogen, oxygen. The oxygen would be the third eye. So the mix with water and air, it creates this infinite engine that every breath that you have and that gives the oxygen to every cell and generates the energy, the motor, the engine of life. It's basically you are breathing the stars. You are breathing literally the light that is outside and igniting the light that is within you in every photon, in every particle. So that's why breathing gives infinite power to each one of the cells. And of course, because we need oxygen to run the machine of the cells, so the oxygenation of our brain, of course, relaxes all the glands and allows every cell to do the process properly of multiplication, mitosis. So holding the homeostasis in the body. So that means that when you are breathing properly, you are giving more power to every cell to create multiplication, to regenerate the DNA, to basically open the registry of your body, of your brain. Otherwise, every neuron has to do so much effort to keep you alive. But when you just breathe deep and just connect with your breathing, you are activating the memory of the universe in every cell. So it's a very chemical reaction, but sometimes we forget that the whole universe is chemistry. The whole universe is basically that: nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, and that's where the divine is. That's the basis of everything that is divine. So for us, breathing is basically the engine of God. So that's why take a deep breath and it connects you with spirituality, basically.
Do you know what? This is so beautiful because I had no idea of this. Okay. So imagine this. The doctor goes, hey, we're going to have to cut your leg off or, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And spirit goes, breathe. My heart said, I'm going to breathe and it will be fine. My mind said, what do you mean breathe? Thanks for the good news, buddy. Could you give me something better?
Yeah.
Can you give me something that'll actually help me out here?
Yeah.
Anyways, followed my heart because I had nothing else to do. It was either that or cut my leg off. I'm not going to cut my leg off. So I went home and I sat up on the bed and I started breathing in a rhythm that came from something much greater than me. I thought it was an external technology. Now I know that it's something that I've known from a past life. It was normally Lemuria or Atlantis, I'm not sure, but I was a technician of breath. And as I sat up and I breathed in a very circular rhythm, I was moving energy from the base of the spine into the brain. I was feeling things, remembering things. I was seeing things. I was knowing things that I had never experienced before. The body was shaking. I was shaking out old trauma from childhood, all sorts of things. And I felt like I filled my body up with light when I was breathing. And I've been saying this to my students for all these years. When you breathe in a certain rhythm, your body will fill up with light. Darkness or sickness, disease cannot live in an environment of bright light. So when you fill up with divine light, we see spontaneous remissions, instantaneous healings.
Yeah.
People that have had cancer that come back in 3 weeks and say it's gone now. People, there were all kinds of things. And I always say I've never healed the person, but I can facilitate breathing. And when you breathe properly, you can heal. Have you seen the correspondence between breathing and healing? And from your insight, what can you share?
Yeah, the process of disease and talking about the first thing that we said, existence is kind of the disease of the universe. What is a disease or an illness? Is basically when something is out of balance. So when all the structures are constantly trying to find harmony and balance, so it's a constant exchange of energy. If there's no exchange of energy, if there's something that stops, that is stationary and it's not moving, not running, so that gets stuck, which means you become ill. So the concept of illness or a disease is basically you are outside of the ease of the movement of your own energy. So everything gets stuck. So in order to heal, what you have to do is to start the movement again. So you need to go to that position, go to the disease, go to the conflict, and start to create movement again. And one of the best movements to do is first the breathing, the generation of allowing the oxygen to arrive to every corner of your body. Because sometimes when someone is sick, the whole focus of mind goes to the part of the body that is sick. But actually, that's a result of a body that was sick everywhere. So it's not about I need to heal that problem. It's about I need to move the entire machine. That's what is happening. It's like when you take the car to the mechanic. Like they always find something different than you wouldn't expect it because you were concentrated in the problem, but the problem was behind it in many other ways. So that's why the main concept on how do I heal myself is when I start to move myself again. So movement is so important for disease because disease is the opposite to movement. It's something that is stuck. It's energy. It's the same energy. So it's not that we have this common thing about thinking there are bad things and disease and things that we have to take away from ourselves in order to feel fine. But actually, if the universe is only one thing, there's no a bad thing and a good thing. There's only imbalance in the same thing. So the main purpose of healing is to find harmony and balance in the same thing. So it's not about taking the disease out. It's about what are the cells that are in balance and how can I move them again in the same rhythm of the entire machine, which is myself. So
I love that.
Yeah, and breathing is one of the first things.
What's that?
And breathing is one of the main things, the first things that we have to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was shown to me through necessity, and I'm alive. I've got 2 legs, thank God. So yeah, breath literally saved my life. And you're right, spirare means spirit. Breath and spirit is the same thing. Every time I do breath work every day, I'm reminded that I am breathing spirit. I'm connecting with my Creator with every breath that is in me. It's a very special experience. It's
and I invite everyone to remember that when you say I am breathing spirituality or I'm connecting to the Creator, most of the people that are waking up has so much weight in the words Creator, Spirit because of the religion and the ways that we learn how to live that. But just think about how powerful hydrogen and oxygen are in the universe. Our sun is powered by hydrogen. So just by drinking a glass of water with a good intention, just by taking a deep breath correctly, knowing that the oxygen is going to your cells, that is also God. So it doesn't take the power away of the divine by saying these tiny little particles are actually igniting all the divinity within me.
I love that. The ancient wisdom, returning back, what the indigenous knew, pray to the water, be one with the breath, and so on and so forth. Very, very special. And thank you for talking about the dogmatic aspect of religion. I was, wounded and or poorly conditioned into religion, and so I separated myself. No, I didn't. I felt like I'd separated myself from the divine for a while, until I remember that, I'm connected to everything and everyone all the time, and there is such a thing as a divine spark or whatever you want to call it, and we happen to be unique fractals of it. What an honor. What a beautiful thing. I mean, it makes remember I used to feel lonely sometimes and alone, and now I just, feel a lot less of that because I know that I'm never separate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it doesn't matter where you go, what you use as a way to connect to that. It's perfect anyway, because it's just, I describe religions for me are like different flowers and we are the insects. So there are some insects that are connected to specific flowers because otherwise they have no purpose because they were designed for that flower. So they would never understand others from other flowers. So in nature, you have so many things that are adapted for life to one only way, but actually the flower exists because of the sun. The light is the same. The light is the same, the oxygen is the same, the nitrogen is the same. So the bases that construct the flowers are the same. It's just different fractals that enable different structures to nourish from the light according to the structure that they express in their evolution. So that's why when you start to feel that you are part of everything, suddenly you are one of those insects or birds that can actually go to any flower and to feel the light anyway.
I love the analogy. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's segue a bit, I should say. And this is a great conversation. Okay, different beings, different star systems. When I was first made aware of this, someone said to me, you're a Pleiadian. I said, what's a Pleiadian? It was like 10 years ago. And then someone said, oh, you're an Arcturian as a starseed. And I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. I've been, unfolding, learning, and I have been across many star systems now. I know I've been on Earth before. I've learned things before. I've been a teacher before. But can you tell us a little bit about, I want to know what specific role do beings, if you want to tell us about these beings, you're welcome. I know people might have heard some of your teachings on this before, but what role do beings from other dimensions play? I specifically want to know about the evolution of our DNA, the activation of the dormant DNA.
Well, of course, this is like many hours of talk. So many deep topics. I would like to put in a big picture that when people listen about Arcturians and Pleiadians and or Syrians and all these people, they're not called like that, first of all. And that's how we in the ancient times used to call the spirits that live in those stars. So Pleiadians are called like that because of Pleiades, a group of stars that is in Taurus constellation. So, and the Greek people call them the Pleiades because Pleie were the doves, the pigeons that were flying around the bull. So that's what they are. They are not calling themselves Pleiadians because that's just the farmers calling the stars in Greece. So the same thing with Sirius, the same thing with Arcturus. Arcturians are not called Arcturians. Arcto means the bear, the white bear. So the North Pole, the star of the North Pole, where the bear lives, it's Arcto. So all of these names and traditions and things that we say is just from the human point of view. It doesn't mean that they are living that in the stars. So once we have that, once we have this perception, we can understand the next. It's very difficult for living structure to travel through space. It's very complicated to have a spaceship that can travel through space and survive all that process of radiation. I don't know, like there are so many things that makes it impossible. As we said, light is the fastest thing in the universe known. And if you cannot reach that, and every star and planet are like millions of years ahead. So how do they travel? How do they connect with us? Well, they use the fourth dimension, not the third dimension, to communicate. And how do you use the fourth dimension? You use time. So what is time? Is rhythms, pulses. So for sure, many of you yourself have heard about this thing that science is talking about how a particle here can be moved and the same particle the twin particle is moving in the other side of the galaxy at the same
quantum entanglement, and it's faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, because there's no even speed. It's just itself. It's not a signal that goes there. It's the same thing that is moving.
Mm-hmm.
So quantum entanglement. That's something that spirituality for thousands of years talked about, but now that science knows it, we all can agree. But it's been a common knowledge in the entire universe for ages. It's just that we didn't know how to describe it. But anyway, what these beings do is to use the photons that are imagine like every photon is like in a line, and the entanglement of every particle is not actually like something from here has to reach the other side, but something from here has to vibrate in exactly the same tone as this one here. So when you vibrate exactly in the same tone, it doesn't take time or space to get to the other side. You just need to be tuned into that other side. So many of those beings that are in different stars are actually connected to particles that are in our bodies. So how do you travel or download information from other systems? Well, you have to go into a very deep state of meditation where you disappear so you can travel through consciousness, not even time, just consciousness, so you can download data, programs into your own particles in a different world. And in order to do that, what you need to do is to change the angle of every ion that forms phosphorus, adenine, cytosine. When you change slightly the structure of your own particles in another world, you are shifting slowly the particles in this one. So because the process is out of time and space, the genetics modifications that they do in a thought, maybe in this planet, takes 1,000,000 years because time relativity. So, for example, humanity have been evolving faster than any other species in all these millions of years. Like in 3 million years, we went from caves to civilizations. In 1,000 years, we went from civilization to so many cultures and variations. And in 3,000 years, we went from the caves and in North Europe to have technology. And now in a few months, we have AI. So that tells you something about a speed of downloading of genetical data and information from other worlds that is speeding our evolution as we connect more with them in other planets. So they are downloading themselves in us. It's not like a spaceship will come and land in the White House. They are basically downloading themselves in this program. So that's why so many people are connecting with them.
Interesting. You know, the so-called scientists say that 98% of our DNA is junk. We know that's not true.
Well,
what can we expect in the next, 10 to 100 years in terms of the faculties, telepathy, telekinesis, these superpowers that many have demonstrated? Intuition is obviously a big one. What can we expect moving forward, and how would we activate these superpowers?
Well, as I said, we are in the middle of a process of evolution that will be fascinating, where we are heading to. It's our infinite potential and all the downloads that we are having from other worlds, other constellations, planets. And of course, as you said, someone said you are Pleiadian. Well, maybe it's because you can tune yourself so good with that civilization that they can download through you information. Which for me, for example, no, because I'm not tuned in the Pleiadian frequency. So for me to understand Pleiadian is like, I don't get it. But from other points of view, I can, like the serious point. The more information it's being downloaded in this planet, the faster we are going to awaken a lot of potentialities that they are within us, but they are not correctly aligned. So because they are not correctly aligned, we cannot access to that potentiality. But for some, it's like saying everyone can play the guitar. So we all can play the guitar, but just a few actually learn how to play the guitar, and just fewer are very good at it. And just 5 or 10 of them are big stars playing the guitar, like change lives of people by playing the guitar. So it doesn't mean that we don't know how. Like we have the same information. So eventually a lot of people will remember, a lot of people will know how to do healings, a lot of people will, like everyone will awake. Maybe 5 will be very like avatars, but doesn't mean that the others don't have that inside. So we are going there, but our culture is still so based in survival that if we develop those things very fast, it's going to be terrible. And one of the reasons why we cannot develop those abilities very fast is because the way we live our lives. We live our lives by not trusting, by trying to survive and hide things from others. We all live through our traumas more than our gifts. So all of that is what creates the junk DNA. It's a lot of registry of information that is not tuned, but if it's correctly tuned in your harmony, then the junk becomes, like when you threw junk to a plant and it turns it into nitrogen and suddenly you have a beautiful tree. So it's the same thing. It's
I love it.
tuned.
Tuning it. Okay. Give me the top 3, please, ways to attune. We talk about in our protocols with our clients, we talk about clean eating and fasting and breathwork and meditation and movement and all these things. What are the top 3 things that you find right now that humanity needs in order to attune ourselves to the divine?
Well, I always say eat properly, breathe properly, laugh properly. So the eating properly and breathing properly, it doesn't mean that you are doing it wrong or that there's one way to do it right. Eating properly means to understand that you become what you eat. And that's something that it's so difficult for us because it's the first time ever in history that you can go to a supermarket and buy whatever you want. We normalize that, but this has only happened for the last 100 years. And our history in humanity is 3 million. So imagine just 100 years where people can grab a paper and exchange it for any food that they want. So imagine that we don't have yet the emotional adjustment to process that you can access to anything if you want. And of course, there's a lot of countries that don't have the resources, but that doesn't mean that now a huge part of the planet do have the access, which before we did. So that created a lot of traumas, like I need to eat as much as I can just in case tomorrow I die. Because we still have this thing. The systems are built for survival. So one of the main things we have to learn is how to eat properly, which is I should only eat what my body needs in the moments that it needs it. And if I'm in the North Pole to eat a pineapple, it's not going to be very tuned with my genetics. So I might have problems with something that for others in Ecuador is normal. Also knowing your own, that's why so many people have so many diseases and allergies today, because we are eating things from different territories that our cells are not understanding or processing, because there were fruits or animals or plants that were designed for people in that territory, or people got used to that in that territory. So today, when we exchange globally, we forget about where we are and how important it is to honor the things that grow in our lands. So there's a whole thing about food, because that's what we are. So that tunes a lot the DNA, what you ingest. Breathing, well, we talked about it. Why it's so important to realize how we breathe. And the third one, laughter. For me, laughter is very important because it regenerates all the system. The brain relaxes, the pineal gland opens better, the energy field, the magnetical field expands. So laughter is very important to not to feel the pressure of existence, but to allow yourself to be a vessel for existence itself. So it's very important to laugh about yourself.
I love it. Yeah, we started the conversation with lots of laughter today. I love that. I've got 2 last questions for you before we wrap up. Okay, the first one, I want to know, please, if you could initiate a rite of passage. We've forgotten this. In Asian cultures, we had a rite of passage, but it seems most Western cultures don't have that anymore. If we could initiate that now, Matias, a rite of passage to awaken human remembrance, what would that ritual look like?
A rite? You mean like
No, like a rite of passage, like a ritual to attune ourselves thoroughly, outside of what we've discussed.
Oh,
ritual. What would that ritual look like?
Well, one of the things that I'm trying to work with some people is to try to bring that ritual of the hero's journey into technology, because we all live through technology today. So we kind of are bounded on how we interact with with technology. So my idea always is to bring the initiatic path into everyone's life. Because an initiatic path, you don't have to go to Egypt and cross the entire Nile and go to every temple to do an initiatic path. You can do it at your home, in between your rooms, or in your own city. You don't have to go very far, or even in your own meditation. So the most important thing is to understand that an initiatic path is when you initiate something new, that is something that is new for you, or that you are going to acknowledge of yourself, and you have to follow certain steps and rules in order to accomplish a whole cycle. So mainly are 12 cycles of steps that you have to do to complete the first cycle. So you can do it in just a tiny meditation with tiny questions that are simple for every day, or for every one of your chakras, for example. And then you can locate that into your city or your home. And then you just walk from one room to the other in the adventure of finding something that you never saw, or to change something in that room that you never thought about moving. So those tiny little things that makes you live constantly the initiative path of the hero, because that organizes and accommodates your consciousness on how you move through life. So if someone is interested in knowing this, I have written the structure of all the initiatic path, and it's all free in a blog. If you look for Yosoy path, Yosoy means I am in Spanish. So I walked through these questions for 370 days in a row, writing a post, going to the pyramid, downloading information, going to the pyramid in Egypt every morning for 370 days. I meditated there, took the information, wrote about it, and then explained it in YouTube. So you have all the information free online, 370. So it's like a whole year of process.
Amazing. We're going to put this in the show notes. It's Yosoy, the Yosoy, as in I am, movement. So go and look that up, everybody.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So we can literally follow the structure and do that.
Yeah.
One last question for you, sir, if I may. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I want you now to imagine, Matias, that you are on the so-called world stage. Every sentient being alive is gathered, watching and tuning into your message to the world right now. When you're ready, please tell us, what's your message to the world right now?
We are at the edge of the creation of a new culture on what is to be human. And we cannot build that if we are still defending our old cultures. So we have all to get together to be all the eyes of the one eye that can harvest their own cultures to give the seeds to the creation of something new and transcendental. We are entering a time that time is going to be relative, that Earth is not going to be just Earth anymore. We're going to expand to other worlds. We're going to expand in technology, in consciousness, in mind control, in so many things that can be used in the wrong way, that we cannot build a new world with the same culture that we have today. And culture means to cultivate. So if you don't cultivate yourself, if we don't concentrate ourselves in the right education for those who have less than 7 years old today, so they need to understand how to cultivate themselves with the right education, which is emotional, which is understanding the world, not about studying stupid things, but to learn what is to be a human, so we can actually build a new culture. And we don't have to worry about those who are adults. We have to worry about allowing the space for those who are less than 7 years old to discover what to be a human in this new culture means. But we have to allow that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Matias De Stefano, everybody. We're really grateful. Enjoy your flight. I'm sure we'll catch up sometime in person, in whatever environment that we see you again. But we really appreciate your work. Thank you for sharing your kind words and taking the time to be here with us. We make sure that we put lots of your amazing work, including the Yosoy movement, in the show notes so people can learn a lot more about you. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias, hermano.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.